Welcome to Educating Barry, where family meets honesty and love meets learning. I'm David, founder of Queer Education Consultancy, and with me is my dad, Barry.
Together, we're navigating the twists and turns of modern family life, one conversation at a time. Whether you're a parent, child, or just curious about LGBTQ+ experiences, join us as we share our journey of understanding, acceptance, and unconditional love.
Remember, we're sharing our own opinions and lived experiences. So, without further ado, let's dive in. In today's episode, we're going to be exploring the topic of coming to terms with being gay. We'll discuss our own personal experiences and journeys and perspectives on things, as well as talking about the importance of family support and the impact this has had so far on our relationship as father and son. So, Dad, this was an episode you kind of wanted to look at together. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of kick things off and if there was anything you wanted to ask me.
As I think I said before, the thing for me is when you talk to anybody that's got a gay son or a gay daughter or whatever it is, transgender or something like that, it's always been very negative. You never hear a positive story about, well, when I came out, my dad or my family or my whatever said, oh, that's okay. And I thought, from my perspective, why is it so wrong? Why have you got to be so negative about it? You know, as far as I'm concerned, my son is my son. I don't care if he's gay or whatever he is, he's my son. I'll always love him. Let them decide what they want to do. Always support them. If you can't support them, that's your loss. That's my opinion. And if I offend anybody, tough.
I don't think you'd have offended anybody with that one. But I think when you talk about, I think things have changed actually. When you think about now, and then you kind of look at what it was like for me coming out, and that kind of, as you know, as you're saying, acceptance of who you are. It was different in the 80s and 90s. It was a very different world we're in now. I think it is a lot better for the kids and the young people today to kind of come to terms with their identity. But I think that's mainly because you look at representation that we have around the, what's on TV, what we hear on the radio. People are more open about their gender identity and their sexual orientation. So I think that has an impact.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I was speaking to a friend of mine on Friday night who's been with his partner for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he didn't even tell his mum and dad. However, what he did say, he said that he had his mum and when he bought his house with his partner, and they had his mum and dad over one night, and obviously his mum and dad were there, and they went home, and he after my friend's dad died, he said to his mum one day, "What did Dad say on the car on the way home?" And he said, "Well, we know now, don't we?" And that was it. That's almost a positive thing, because at least he didn't go, which is what, a lot of people say, well, my son's gay, blah, 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 blah. So what?
Yeah.
Would you say the same thing if you come up and said, actually, I'm heterosexual?
Yeah, but then we live in a world that is heteronormative. The world is not designed, but the world is kind of, the world we live in is very much aimed at the straight person, and especially the cisgender person as well. So it's kind of, we're the ones that kind of are fighting or battling against that, if you like, trying to get our views and our opinions seen. So when you as a young person, or however old you are, when you're battling your identity yourself, you've got to do the internal discussions with who you are, while also thinking about everyone else around you. And it's kind of have that internal and external dialogue happening at exactly the same time, which I think can be hard to process because you've got nowhere to hide from it, if you like.
We knew from a quite a young age you were gay, but obviously we felt that we couldn't say anything to you because, what do you say? So from my perspective, I want to find out how you felt about that and what changed in your life, and then suddenly said to you, well, actually, I've got to tell my mum and dad. What was the triggers for that?
It was escaping the town I lived in.
So if you'd stayed in the town you lived in, would you today be gay?
No, I'd still be gay. That would never have changed it. But I think the issue is it's the idea of living in a small town where everyone knows everybody. And they do, you walk into town, even if I go back now and I walk into town, I'm going to see someone I know, whether they will say hello to each other or not, it's a different story, but you recognize people. It was always that fear of, I can't explore who I am because what if I'm not gay and I get labeled as gay? Then where do you go?
I understand that, because if you know that one of Simon's friends is
Simon, being my younger brother, I'm sure he won't mind his name being used on the podcast.
One of his friends is gay and has been outwardly gay for a long, long time. He, as you say, found it very difficult to live in this town and other towns around where we are, because unlike big metropolises, if you like we use London example. In London, you and your partner can walk down the street arm in arm. if you come to the provincial small town where we live, if you were to walk down the street arm in arm, God knows what would happen.
Mm.
And I think that is so wrong. Provincial towns haven't moved on as much as we think they have. They are going that way, but they're not that way yet. And that's sad.
Yeah, so that's why, I think things are moving on a lot more now, definitely. But for me at the time, I had to escape and I went to Northampton to go to uni. And it wasn't so much about going to Northampton because that was the place to go. I had to get out of the town. And then almost it's that sense of anonymity. Could be who I wanted to be then. I could reinvent myself and meant I could explore things. And if I went there and explored my sexuality and I decided it's not who I am and I was straight, for a better word, then I can come back and no one needs to know about it. So it was having that escapism, I guess.
So is that one of the things that this is going to sound horrible, but it's the only way I can think about it. So is there a lot of gay, lesbian, transgender people that do that? They move away from where they grew up, if you like, especially if they grew up in a small town.
Yeah, and it does happen. And I think there are people up and down the country probably listening to this and probably even abroad that are like, yeah, that's exactly what you do. So, you look at, I live in London, you look at that, the amount of young people who come to London and are so excited when they walk into Soho, because not only have you got like just one or two gay bars, but you've got a melting pot of diversity. So you can literally be anybody you want to be. Then the next day, go on.
It is interesting in Soho because we were talking to my friend the other night, and I was saying quite funnily, we've been to Soho, as you know, with you several times. And the one thing that struck me about Soho is from, when you think about it from my perspective, when you go in, everybody's so friendly. There's never any bother. I've been into pubs in my local area where you walk in and people go, "Who's he? What's he wanting here?" Whereas you go in a gay bar, go, whatever.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are certain gay bars in London that you still get that happening, but that's more looking people up and down and they think about what they're wearing and the rest of it. So there's a culture.
Yeah. Don't get me started on what they're wearing.
There's a whole culture in not all gay bars. Some of them most of them are actually fine, but there's a couple where you think there's clearly people that are just judging you for walking in. But you get that anywhere, don't you?
Yeah. What plays me about some of the bars in London, in Soho, whatever, you go in and you think, what is that person wearing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want to wear yellow with black or whatever it is? It's like being married with two daughters. You have the fashion police, if you like, with you, because it's not about, it's like, like, who does she think she is? Looking at another woman, they go and say, well, who's that? But that's what it is. But anyway, sorry, back on topic.
No, so that was but going to gay bars was part of it. So I went to my first gay bar in Northampton. I don't think it's still there anymore. I think it was the Jolly Anchor, it was called. The irony was the entrance into it was around the back. So there you go. But that it was the first time I could be in a place where people were just open about their sexuality, being around people who were confident and owning who they were.
And how did you feel going in there then? Because obviously,
oh my God, so nervous. Walking into the gay bar for the first time was like, I don't know, like going for a job interview that you really want or something. It's just like the most nerve-wracking thing you can do.
But how did they make you feel then? The people in the bar, how did they make you feel?
When you think back at it now, it's a bit like when you walk into any bar, no one even looks at you. Really, I know we're joking around people like judging you, looking you up and down. When I look back in hindsight, you realize that everyone's too caught up in their own world to be thinking about what anyone else really thinks and what they're doing. So, and also when I think back to it, it's a bit of a uni town. So I'm sure there are other people in there who are in the same position as me. First, second time they've been in a gay bar. You get all sorts, don't you? Walking all walks of life.
You do, and I'm sure there was heterosexuals in there as well.
Because probably were, So I think that was kind of it. And then from there, then you start dipping your toe into going to the other bars. Then you start coming out to. So I came out to my uni friends first. And for me, when you talk about exploring it, this shows how old I am. So Grindr wasn't even around at the time, so it was all on Gaydar, which is a website you go on to kind of meet people and chat and things. And that's how I then met a couple of people that I got to know and got to kind of explore things with them.
So can I just go back a step, if you like? So how did your friends at university, you went out, you said you came out to your friends at university. How did they react? Did they go, oh, okay, Dave? Or what?
Yeah, literally. It wasn't a problem. I think, especially when you do something like go to uni, everyone is fresh and in their own world. I should have said to you, actually, have you seen Big Boys on Channel 4?
No, it's one of those things that I think we should, one of the things on my list to watch. But
Oh my God, watch it. I think for anyone listening, if it's, I don't know if it's still on Channel 4 by the time people listen to this episode and what have you, but it's two seasons are out so far. And it's really weird. It almost mirrors my life. It's probably about a decade after me. So it's set in like 2013, 2014 type thing. And it's about a 19-year-old guy who goes to uni, but he's in the closet.
oh,
So it's
okay,
really interesting, and he goes to Brent Uni in the TV show. It's written by a guy called Jack Rook, I think his name is, and it's kind of semi-autobiographical. But that for me was really interesting watching it back, like some of the stories that he would kind of tell, like the friendships he's made. But yeah, for me, uni was a place where it was a safe space, to use that kind of that phrase, because everyone there was in the same position, and you just make friends, especially in like freshers year, the first year at uni, you just make friends with everybody, and then you craft your friendship circles if you like. Yeah. So uni was the time I got to explore myself. My only thing I kind of think back now is it's a shame it took me to 19 to find that.
but do you think, looking back on your life, that back then, as you say, when you were 19, and that's like 20 odd years ago, things have moved on so far now, and in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. You look in hindsight and go, do you know what? We should have done X, and you didn't. You either go left or right, and you go right or left.
Mm.
Being gay today would be easier for you, I'm guessing, in lots of respects. But at night, when you were 19 and going to university and coming from a provincial town, it must have been almost like, wow, this is amazing, and also frightening. And also, you've got to think that you've come out to your uni friends, and then what if mum and dad come up and they say, "Oh, by the way, did you know Dave's gay?" Or did that not cross your mind?
That never crossed my mind. I think mainly because most of us at uni would kind of, you'd organise to go backwards and forwards with your parents. You'd kind of, between your friends group, you all go back the same weekend. So none of you were there, then you'd all come back the weekend after type thing. So that's how it kind of worked with us, I think. But no, it never crossed my mind about you guys coming up and finding out from someone else. I think because even, even though that was what, 20 years ago, people were still respectful of it being my story to tell.
I think the thing is that again is one of these key factors, isn't it? Whatever we think as parents, this is going to be your story.
Yeah.
It's your story. I'm talking about how I feel as a parent, but I'm almost a secondary player, if you like, to this whole thing, because it should be about your story and how you have navigated, if you like, through this without help and support. But it is, I think, mostly about you or your journey and how you can help other people. And I can help other people as well by just being who we are.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a journey. Like, it wasn't like I woke up one day at Northampton and was like, "Oh, I'm gay today. Let me try and explore this." It was, as you said, you knew from when I was younger that I was gay, but it's that journey of self-acceptance, I think. And it took me 19 years of my life to realize I was gay, but I would probably honestly say it's taken another 15 years of that after that to accept myself for being gay, if that makes sense. That there's a
It
point where
does.
you go, yes, this is who I am. And then there's that journey of discovery and acceptance of who you are and what your identity really means.
Yeah, because I guess being heterosexual, you think women, but even that, you've got to think about what sort of women you like. Do you like big blacks and blondes? Do you want slim, petite, whatever? And that's a lot easier for me. But for you, you've got this whole, as you say, you come out as being gay, then
Mm.
you've got to work out where you fit in life and how you've come out to your mum and dad. That's fine, but then do you come out to wider work people or what? Because that, as you said, I think before, if you think about being a teacher, and I don't know what happened when you're at you're teaching university, whether that was an issue being gay there, or was it an issue when you went to your schools? Was it, or was it nobody cared, or did you even tell anybody?
I didn't
Sorry.
tell anyone. When I was, especially because, so I went to, just to give people a backstory. So I went to University of Northampton to train to be a teacher. I did what, a year and a bit and then quit. But actually, when I think back, I'm like, I wasn't ready to be a teacher at the time. I was there on a journey of self-discovery. So when I went on placements in my first year and then I went on placement second year, it didn't come up because and for a long time, actually, even when I did qualify as a teacher, didn't think that Dave being gay had a place in school. It was almost like left at the door and kind of leave your baggage behind and get in the classroom and do your job type thing. So it really took a long time for me to kind of accept that, and probably till quite recently, really, past kind of 5 years, for me to be able to say, no, this is who I am. My identity comes with me into the classroom, and I'm not hiding it from anyone. I'm not going to change who I am as a person just because I'm now standing in front of 30 children.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, isn't it? Because if you go back to this whole thing, me as a heterosexual male, I stand up in front of the class, go whatever, and it's always been that way. Whereas if you look back, if you've been gay or lesbian or transgender or whatever you want to be, to stand up in front of a class of 30 children must be daunting if you are hiding something from them, because kids are very good at picking up on things. Now,
God,
whether
yeah.
they pick up on that you're gay or not, so they might call you Mr. X, or they might go, well, actually, Mr. X is gay, blah, 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 blah. And that must be not hurtful is the wrong word, but I don't know. What's the word
I mean,
for it?
I've not experienced that, where kids have kind of said that to my face and stuff. Maybe I think that's because I deal with primary schools more. My career is
Yeah.
teaching primary, but you're right. Kids are on it, and they know if you're not telling the truth about something. They absolutely pick up on it. But yeah, so I think going back to the point about coming to terms of being gay and the journey, it carried with me for a long time and still does. There are still times, but I think when I was in those early years, I used to have real issues with the really camp gays. I thought it was too much an act. Like Louis Spence, for example. I mean, I'm probably dating myself now a bit by being able to talk about who he is. But, when he came on TV back in the day, I was like, I can't bear to watch the guy.
No, but did he do that for theatrical purposes, if you like, because it made him memorable? Because you always know who he is. You see somebody in the 90s, Louis Spence, you just thought, oh, the gay guy. And it wasn't meant to be detrimental. It's because that's what he portrayed on TV. That's who he
Yeah.
was known for.
And I don't know him, so I don't know what he's like in life,
And he's
whether
probably,
he is, for all we know, that could actually be his genuine persona. But there was a long time where I went through life not liking people like that because I thought it was fake. I thought it was an act. It's like, how can you actually be that camp and that extrovert? Um, and then maybe as I've got older, I've kind of realized that actually they're almost everyone is on. It's almost like it's a spectrum. We can all have our camp days. We can all have our really straight days. Like, when I lived with my best mate, we'd go to the fish and chip shop on a Saturday. She's like, "Oh, here comes straight Dave," because when I go to the bar, I can put it on. And it wasn't. I didn't even know I did it. I'd go to the bar and be like, "You're right, mate. Can I have cod and chips type thing?" And they'd be like, "Who is that? And where has that person just come from?" Because you kind of switch into different zones. Whereas I remember when GAY closed at the Astoria, going back years now, and I went with a really good friend of mine at the time, and we camped up to the max. I was in tight shorts, glitter all over our body, sunglasses on, shirt unbuttoned down to here type thing. And he was like, it took me a long time to realize I can be both people at the same time. And it doesn't make me gay or not gay. I'm not more of a gay or less of a gay or that kind of thing. It's about exploring who you are.
yeah. And I think that's again, that's one of the big things, isn't it? Why would you not?
Because it's fear of being rejected. I think that's the big thing.
But yeah, so that's changed, hasn't it, over the last couple of years. If you think about, like, we went to Pride 2 years ago now, 18
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah. 2 years ago.
Um, and what honestly surprised me was the amount of people that were there. I don't mean in the parade. I mean at the side. There was 10 or 20 deep watching this
There's
parade go through.
millions of people come to
And it's
London
like,
Pride.
from my perspective, I've never been to one before, never even heard about it before. I've heard, the big companies going, we're going to support Pride this year because blah, 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 tick boxed. But to actually go and watch that and see there was, families there with young kids. There was, I'm an OAP, OAPs dressed up. There was youngsters dressed up. There was the whole spectrum. And it was, this will probably show my age, young YMCA people, if you like, which were a group in the 70s that
The
were.
characters from the group. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you see all
But,
walks of life.
and that's what really sort of made me think, what is so wrong with the world today that you don't accept all this?
The trouble is, though, you're right. Pride is a really good experience to go to. I think I went to my first Pride when I first moved to London. I think that was like I was working out the other day. I think it was 16 years ago that I moved to
Mm.
London, which I think tells you something about me. Like you'll know from with me, I've kind of job hopped and hopped around towns and places, whereas London has been my home for 16 years. And there's a reason, because I feel like I can be myself. But going back to Pride, Pride is wonderful and it's always great, but I think the message of Pride, A, gets lost. You know, Pride started out as a protest movement about LGBT rights. Sometimes that gets lost in translation. I think sometimes the community, we're there for a party and there's nothing wrong with having a good time. But it's also, we need to remember that at the moment, there's a lot going on, especially for the trans community, and we need to make sure we stand up for them and making sure we're supporting them. But also, Pride isn't every day. You know, Pride becomes a safe space in the centre of London because there's heavy police presence there, because everyone is there together. So it's almost like it's a herd immunity type concept. You know, you're in a big group together.
Yeah.
You're less likely to be whatever. Sadly, there are still people in the world who can't accept being gay, and that's their choice. It's up to them. I'm not here to change their minds. But yeah, Pride isn't every day. So it's great having it one day of the year, but it's what happens the other 364 days of the year that are more important, I would say.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things that makes people aware of this whole LGBT community. Because if it wasn't there, you wouldn't have that 4 million or 5 million or 1 million, whatever it, people watching it. So whether they agree with it or not, you've still got a million people going, oh, I went to the Pride the other day and it was this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw X and I saw Y. And it's as much as there's a big high police presence, the police were in the parade and they were openly showing the badges of, Pride badges, and there was firemen, there was ambulance, there was, army, navy, or whatever, and that showed the depth. Yeah, their true self comes out, if you like.
And you know what? That was going to be my next point. I was like, it's confidence. That's what it takes, and it's taken me since the age of 19 to being 40 now. It's taken me that long to be confident in who I am.
21 years.
Why? Why does it take someone 21 years to be confident in who they are?
That's a question for you. Why has it taken you so long? Because in your own words, you've been gay since you were 13, 14. So what has taken you so long? You came out to us when you were 19, 20. So for the last 20 years, we've accepted you, that the whole of your family, including brothers, sisters, nans, granddads, aunts and uncles, nobody cares. You're Dave. That's all you are. So
I know, but it's always that internal, and maybe it's me. I don't know. I've done a lot of reading around it, and people have inner critics and inner coaches. My brain has always been an inner critic, and still is to this day. And I'm always working on how do I combat my inner critic to be more positive in life. But that has always been there. But I never know if it's part of because I've lived in a world where when I was younger, there was never any positive messaging about being gay, and I think that's the important difference. Now, the youth of today. I was reading a report by Stonewall just because I was doing some work in the week. So your generation, the baby boomers, 91% of adults identify as straight. I think when you get to my generation, the millennials, it's about 84%. When you get down to the Gen Z, so the kids born between, I think it's 95 and 2015, only 71% of them identify as straight. And I think that tells a lot.
If of the 91% that are baby boomers, if you actually ask them honestly, what would the percentage be then? Because as you know, there's one particular person in your age group at school, at your particular school, married, had children, then came out as gay, and you said, well, if I'd known that when he was at school, I fancied him at school. But
out of my secrets now, Dad, in public.
Yeah, but that's fine. But the thing is,
he was a good-looking lad at the time.
Exactly. So the thing is, he's probably in that because he was in the same group as you, if you like. So of that 84%, how many of them are secretly hiding their sexuality?
Exactly. But I think that's it. It's that people who are comfortable and confident to be able to say who they are and what they feel inside. So when you look at your generation, I'm not surprised it's 91% say they're straight, and only 9% say they're LGBTQ+. Because when you look at your generation, as you said before, it was frowned upon and it was still seen as a mental disease. It was criminal charges attached to it, all of that. But as time has gone on, we've now got a generation of kids who Stonewall I quite like it. They call it the rainbow generation because more people are able to be themselves because it's been decriminalized, because there's no mental stigma attached to it. People can be more authentic. There's more representation everywhere. So I think it's developing the confidence.
And I think it's society in general as well. You've got to accept this. Until you get people like you and other people that are, you know, bring it out, bring your sexuality to the light. Because at the moment, we're still in a society where lots of people do not bring their sexuality to the table. They don't bang their drum and say, do you know what? I'm gay. And so what? There's not many people that stand up and go, do you know what? I'm gay. Don't care. But you still need more people to come out, and not just in, you know, government and other places. Like, you know, what, I don't know the answer to the question, but how many serving police officers are LGBTQ plus, or whatever? I don't know the full terminology. How many members of the armed forces are hiding it?
Good question. I know that in teaching, there was research done around it, and there are, have a guess. How many teachers are LGBT plus?
15%.
Give me a number.
How many teachers are there in the UK?
There are thousands of teachers in the UK. If you
right,
think,
so
there's 23. I think there's about 23,000 schools in the country.
Okay, so 23,000. If you say there's 100 teachers in each school, just as an example, so that's 230 odd thousand, right? I would say there's less than 30,000.
So there are approximately, because we've been able to look at census data to look at it, I think it's just under 50,000 LGBT plus teachers.
Again, this is people that have come out.
Yeah.
Is that a tip of the iceberg? Or is that the majority of them? Or is it like you said earlier, when you became a teacher, you didn't mention your sexuality? Not that you should. Why should you have to mention your sexuality? You know, if I was a teacher and I went to school and said, can I be your history teacher? Nobody ever said to me, what's your sexuality? Now they do. You know, if I apply for a job, it goes, are you heterosexual, straight, bisexual, whatever? And it's also got at the bottom, which is quite interesting, prefer not to say, which is, well, why are you asking a question then?
Yeah, but then that's like, you know, when you look at the census data, there was always the question around what's your sexual orientation, what's your gender identity. They're separate questions, but there's always that option then of being able to opt out of that question. I think that's an interesting statistic. And it comes on to, like, we've talked about what it's like for me to come to terms with being gay, but actually, what is it like for society as a whole to come to terms with the fact there are LGBT plus people in the world? You know, when I do a lot of my training, I use the phrase that diversity is a fact, inclusion is an act. You know, you have to act the inclusion. It's a process you have to go through. Some people really struggle with identifying that diversity is a fact.
Yeah, I was trying to think what my friend said to me the other night. He said something quite profound to me about when you know, him and his partner, and they've been together 40 odd years. It's not about. It was something very similar, like we're not sort of integrating. It's being who you are. So why have you got to integrate with society? Society should be all encompassing. And he did, and I will speak to him again about it. The great thing for me over the last few years is as a father and son, we've got closer, I think, because we are talking about this, and we've had some great conversations about being gay or not being gay and all this and the other. And to me,
why we decided to actually make it into a podcast and see what happens with it.
But it is quite interesting when you talk to other people. I've got a couple of friends that are not heterosexual, should we say, and you look at it and you think, until you actually have somebody in the family, you almost think, well, what's going on with that? But then when you dig deeper into it, you think to yourself, why was I so worried about that?
Yeah.
What is it? As I've said to you before, and I will say over and over again, you are my son. I don't care that you're gay. Dave is Dave. To me, he's my son. As far as I'm concerned, I've got 3 sons and 2 daughters. I have to think about things. Eldest son, eldest daughter, you, youngest son, youngest daughter.
Yeah. So you've got me and Simon from your marriage to our mum, and then you've got the 3 children you've kind of stepkids, aren't they, really, for you? For your current wife. So that sounds really bad, doesn't it?
Current wife. Don't let Jen hear this conversation. Scrap that when you edit it. Take that bit out.
No, I can leave it in, I think, on purpose now.
Your WSM, as you call her, wicked stepmother.
Sorry, my wicked stepmother. Sorry,
but you know, it's
But you're right. It is, why do I have to fit someone else's mold?
Exactly.
Why have I got to bend to make what someone else thinks is right? And I think that kind of goes back to stereotypes, doesn't it? What people think it means to be gay or trans or a lesbian or asexual, queer or whatever. Why do we have to think, what do people want from me? Whereas it should just be, you are who you are. We'll accept it. But
But I think that's the wider thing, isn't it? As much as we accept you for who you are, society will look at you and go, he's gay. And
I think, do you know what I think it is though, Dad? It's because there's a person attached to the identity, to the label.
but they never look at me and go, oh, he's heterosexual.
No, I know, but what I mean by that is like for when it comes to accepting what other people are like that are different to themselves in any way, actually, it often comes down to knowing somebody. Like I did a episode on another podcast show about that kind of how you build compassion. And I was saying to Zahara on that a lot of it is about making sure you know people who have got that characteristic, whatever it is, whether you're talking about race, religion, belief systems, gender, sexual orientation. When you know somebody, it almost becomes different. Like I think it's one of my cousins, isn't it, on your side that was saying that, well, Dave's all right because that's Dave, but if anyone else was gay, I wouldn't accept it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you're right. Listening to what you just said, it's just something that struck me because I have friends from different religions, different cultures, and because you know those people, you accept them that they are. Like we was talking to a guy of African origin last week, and we were talking about families, and it's surprising how they match both his ideas and my ideas.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you go, sometimes you go, I can't talk to him, he's black. Well, so what?
Do you know what? That's it. Because I was doing some training this week with some schools, and the big thing that comes up at the moment is kind of religion and being LGBT. And they were like, yeah, but how do we teach this? And the message I said to them is exactly what you've just said. You teach about values. You know, what is a loving family? What does it mean to be a nice person? Being a nice person is not determined by the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, or, you know, your gender or whatever it might be. Being a nice person is intrinsically what's inside.
You know, I'll give you an example. I was on the train because, you know, I go to London and work. And I was on the train, on the tube, and this particular person got on the tube. And as soon as you saw this person, you thought they're very arrogant because there's no seats. Why is there no seats for me? And you think, what an a-hole. I don't know if that person had just split up from their partner, had they had, you know, hot coffee spilt on them. I don't know what they were like. But my instant reaction was, what are you like? Why are you being so mean to other people? Because you're putting off this persona as saying, why I'm so important. And it's like, I don't know the person.
The trouble is we're hardwired to judge people. It's just almost, it's learning to overcome it, isn't it? And be like, you know, when I go back to Louis Spence, my initial gut reaction was like, I think I don't like him. He's too camp. I can't like people like that. Sometimes it's that reflective mirror. It's what you see in yourself or what you don't want to see. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's about having to broaden your horizons.
And, you know, I try not to judge people. One of the things that you've taught me is I try not to judge people. And I've done these, you know, whatever you call them, like behavioural courses at work. We have to do these now, which is sometimes quite interesting because it's almost like a tick box exercise. Well, Barry's done the unconscious bias course. What's it taught me? Naffle. It's like when they go, we're gonna support Pride this year, aren't we? Great, tick.
Yeah,
doesn't do anything for anybody. You know, you can, as an old saying, you can take a horse to walk, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah, we've got in the teaching profession, there's quite a few like unions and things. And the union I'm part of, we've got an LGBT WhatsApp group. And one of the interesting things we do every year, and it's become a bit of a game really, is we start looking around May time which companies are starting to show pride flags now. And then as we go through the season and things dwindle off, we're like, who's still got them up? And you literally see it, that from like May to July, kind of the height of the summer, you'll see all these companies all across the country. They've all got pride flags up. But what are they doing every day? How are they helping move the community on?
I am finding, and this is only, again, me, I'm finding some of the big companies I'm working for, have worked for, have now what they call allies. Is it allies? Is that the right word I'm using? Or allies? Yeah. So you
allies.
have.
I did work with a teacher who said, I'm an ally. And I was like, what does that mean? She went, oh, I'm an ally. I was like, that's ally. It. Well done.
Yeah, but again, I don't know how that works because of the company I'm working for, I haven't worked for that long, but they are quite keen on this whole thing. They've got an LGBTQ plus group.
Well done.
Which, if I become made permanent, I will join primarily because I do feel that one of the things that always gets me is, why is it only LGBT people are in these groups? Why shouldn't I be part of that group? I want to make sure that people are not afraid to come out and say, do you know what? I support you. if you want me to stand on the barricades, I'll stand on the barricades with you because that's who I am. But I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to, like, we've been in gay bars and we laugh and joke, and you know yourself. I think the thing is that's just picking back on something you said earlier. You sometimes have men that aren't gay.
Yeah, because they're perceived to be, look at the way they can be treated. The
Yeah,
same
well,
with women. You know, if you get someone who stereotypically looks like they might be butch or they might be too masculine, you know, it's horrific. You look at it, you know, you look at, I'm gonna have to bring it up now. My favorite Spice Girl, Melanie C, you know,
yeah.
she had a horrid time through the press in the late 90s and into the early noughties, and still does to a point now. I think people's perceptions is because she goes to the gym and she's sporty, and you know, she had a period where she cut her hair and all the rest of it. They're all saying she's a lesbian. Why? What makes her a lesbian? How do you know just because the way someone dresses, the way someone looks, or their hobbies?
So let's
You
pull
can't.
this back to how you felt when you came out, because we've gone off track as we always do. We go on tangents, and which is my one. I'm terrible for that. I do apologise, everybody. I want to understand. You went to university and you found out what your sexuality. You understood your sexuality, if that's correct.
Yeah.
But how does that still make you feel? Did you feel relieved, excited, depressed? What was going through your mind at that time? Because obviously we were still unaware of what's going on. You know, we didn't know. How did you feel then?
Do you know what? There isn't an easy answer to this because I think when you kind of listed off a load of emotions, it's like yes, 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 and yes. There was first of all was that weight lifted off your shoulder. The fact that I'd finally been able to come out to somebody and told somebody and not be rejected. That was the first thing. It was nice to be in that position where people were going, okay, fine, it doesn't make a difference. You're still our friend. You're still part of our family. You know, that's who you are. But what's interesting and then is it's as I alluded to earlier, the longer you go down the road and you're out and you're trying to find out who you are, you then have to learn all about the kind of the culture around being gay. Like there's Polari, that's a whole language that kind of has impacted on Cockney rhyming slang. I don't know much more about Polari, but you know, there's a lot of words that come up that are old slang words, so people could talk in code about being gay. You know, so it was learning all of that. And then like when I did go to the gay bars and I realized that everyone else was listening to the Spice Girls just as much as I was, or listening to Girls Loud or whatever girl groups, and it's all pop and steps. And I was like, oh, this is where my world is, if you know what I mean. And then you kind of feel like, okay, so this is what it's not just me that's weird that's into this stuff. Not weird, but you know, like you feel like you are because of it. But you kind of realize that there's a whole community of people. And I think that's what took me a long time is realizing there's a community out there and that you can access it and you can be yourself through it. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's what I'm trying to allude to. So how did you've got this community now that you've come out to yourself, because that's obviously they've got to be primary. You've
yeah.
got to, you know, and you come out to your friends, and then you found this society, if you like, or group of people that are,
Society sounds like it's a membership club, a
well,
community.
you have to forgive me because I'm not au fait with a lot of this, but you think to yourself, I've now found this group of people or community of people that I can be myself with, where nobody judges me. It's just like I am who I am, and nobody cares. And then you switch back to your normal life, and you come back to us, and you have to play being straight almost, and then you come
That's
out.
exactly it. That is exactly it, Dad. You live between two worlds, if you like.
And that's the bit that I find interesting in some respects, because you know who you are, we know who you are, but it's like that backwards and forwards. It's like this to and fro, isn't it? You know, almost like table tennis, to you, to me, to you, to me, to you, to me, because when you're in London, you're one person or were one person.
Yeah.
When you come back to here, to home, you become somebody else. So you go to pub, what love you do? And then when you're in London,
Not quite like that, but yeah,
no,
there we
but
go.
you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
that. I'm a man's man, or I'm a man. Like you said earlier, when you go to the chip shop, I'll have two cod chips,
Great
mate.
Dave comes out to play. But I
Yeah.
think it's, you know, yeah, that does happen. But also, I may have accepted and to myself that I was gay when I was 19, but I didn't know what being gay meant and how you can be gay, if that makes sense. Like there's different ways, you know, Louis Spence is a really good example of someone who's, if you think about being gay on a spectrum, Louis Spence is one end. And then you've got the complete guys who are, I hate the word straight acting, but it's kind of that way he would pass for being straight.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, there's a pendulum that kind of swings. And often you know, you kind of see it sometimes with younger guys that come out or girls and what have you. And it's kind of it's really easy to swing one way on a pendulum. And I think I can't remember who I've described it to a few people now. Like when I came out, I've never been one who's been super camp, but you swing and you kind of explore what you are, and eventually you will settle somewhere. Depending on where it is on the spectrum, you'll find where you're comfortable.
I think that's true of every sex. Would it be lesbian, LGBTs, transgender, whatever? You will find your level. You will find where you fit in the middle, and you will experiment, I guess, because we all experiment our sexuality. We experiment along. Do I like big women? Do I like small women? Whatever.
But the issue for me goes back to stereotypes. I think it is different now, though, is that at the time, the only kind of gay person I thought that existed was the really camp guys, because those are the ones you see. So I was kind of like, right, that's the only kind of gay that you can be, or the only kind of gay that exists. So that's what you must fancy. But then when you come to big cities like London or Manchester, what have you, you realize it's being gay is more than just one tiny little part. There's a huge spectrum of people.
Yeah, and I agree. And that's the thing that's always struck me. And I will go back to it and back to it and back to it and back to it. To me, your sexuality is irrelevant.
No, it's not.
It is to me.
No, it's not. You can't say sexuality is irrelevant.
What I meant was your sexuality. Maybe wrong terms, but to me, you're Dave. So it doesn't matter to me that you're gay. Is what I'm trying to say.
But it should matter.
Well, it matters because you are who you are.
Yeah, being gay is part of my identity. It shapes who I am.
Identifies you. That doesn't identify you as gay. Identify you as Dave first.
No, yeah.
That makes sense. So maybe that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah, there's more to me than my sexual orientation. You can't
it's
ignore.
Part of who you are. That makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
So yeah. I just think when we kind of come full circle to kind of wrap it up, coming to terms with being gay, it's taken me 40 years. Am I there? Probably 90% of the way. Will I ever be there 100%? Probably not. But when we look at,
are you comfortable in yourself?
Yes, and my confidence has grown, and I think that's the difference. When I look back to who I was when I was younger, I was incredibly shy. I'm still shy in new situations now. I'm still quite an introvert in most ways, but I'm confident in who I am.
Yeah, to me, I think you've grown immensely, and I think you portray great confidence. When I look at what you're doing now, and if we look back at your history of your life, if you like, the way you go, and it breaks up.
Sounds like this is your life, or you're going to give it.
It's the way that you've grown, as you say, you from being a very shy man that came out one night and said, "I'm gay, Dad." Okay, and now you are so confident in who you are, and that to me is amazing. But to me, it's as I say, for me, the one thing that I would say to parents of anybody that is LGBTQ plus
is this Barry's words of wisdom to end at an end of an episode.
Yeah, just I'd say every single time. I don't care. Love the person. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Stand up and say, do you know what? I don't care. I love you. What more do you want? What more do you need? I love you and support you. It's like if you go back to this provincial town we live in at the moment, okay? If you were to walk down the street arm in arm with your partner, I would be looking around like this all the time. We'll be in a bar, and I'm always on the lookout. But it's like I'm sitting there going, okay, is Dave okay? Is Dave all right? I don't have to do that so much in London, but I feel I have to do it down here, where we're in the provincial town we're in. But I shouldn't have to. Why should I have to do that?
Because society's not in a place yet. Not to end on a downer, because I feel like we're kind of getting to a natural kind of curve on this, but society, you look at the hate crime statistics across all protected characteristics, they're on the rise. So there's still work to be done for, we've touched on it. Yeah, I've come to terms with my sexuality. I'm assuming you're very much at terms with my sexuality, but society as a whole isn't.
No, and that's why this is important. That's one of the things that I would like people to get from these podcasts is, what does it matter? Who you are is my son, Dave. That's the first and foremost thing in my feelings and my thoughts. Me and my current wife are so very, very...
Oh, I'm going to get it in the neck for that one, aren't I?
Oh, you're going to get it all the time, mate. I'm only going to get it in the neck. But yeah, we are so supportive of you and so proud of what you've done with yourself. And the way that you've come out, and maybe not come out as in gay, but come out and said, well, actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to help change society. I'm going to do this. What you're doing at
Yeah.
the moment. If one person picks up what you're doing and says, oh, okay, it's okay for me to be LGBTQ. What a great thing to do, and say, well, actually, do you know what? I'm going to talk to my dad or my mum about this and see what they're going to do.
There isn't an end to coming to terms with it. It's just you get better at accepting yourself and identity, and society's also moving the right way. So yeah, you've given your wise words, I think.
Something about that. But I just think, to me, you are what you are. You can't change it. And why would you want to change it?
Yeah.
Life is life. Live with it. Live it.
So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Educating Barry. We hope our conversation today has given you some food for thought.
Remember, growth isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share with someone who might need to hear this. We'd love to hear from you too.
So please do share your thoughts or suggest new content by emailing us at educatingbarry@queered.co.uk or using the hashtag educatingbarry on social media. Until next time, keep talking, keep listening, and keep loving. This is David and Barry signing off.